wrestling, strength isn't just measured by muscle, but by endurance, agility, and the will to power through. Picture the titans of the ring, dashing with ferocity, their every step shaking the ground beneath them. They're not just athletes, they're warriors in a modern-day coliseum, engaging in an eternal dance of tactics and sheer might. Running the ropes isn't just about speed, it's a game of strategy, a test of fortitude. Picture the electricity that fills the air as they bounce back, ready to make their move. It's a dance, a performance, a battle. In wrestling, every moment counts. Every step, every bounce, every breath is part of something bigger. It's not just a sport, it's a spectacle. It's a world where heroes are made, where legends are born. This is the world of wrestling. This is Running the Ropes. What's going on, everybody? It is Tuesday evening, July 22nd, and hopefully everyone is seeing this. I believe it's going out live on Facebook, changing things up just a little bit here. Normally I go to YouTube, but there's some things in the work, folks, concerning WSN. It's going to be great. It's going to be legendary. But we got to go through the bugs first, as always, in order to get a amazing product out to all of you. You got to break a couple of eggs, and that's all right, because who doesn't like eggs? In fact, for dinner tonight, I even made eggs Benedict for dinner. Yes, that's right. Breakfast for dinner at the behest of my youngest child. So we'll see how this works. If not, I will get this out. I can download it and get it streaming over to YouTube and back over to Facebook, at least to our WSN page. But speaking of WSN, met some already amazing people on there. Some really good relationships. And as I said earlier, got a lot going on, a lot in store, and none of it would be possible if it wasn't for my guest this week. So I'm going to go ahead and bring him on, WSN CEO, Brady Owens.
Hello, everybody. I'm very, very excited to be here tonight on Running the Ropes. My first official interview as a guest, and what better show to be on than Running the Ropes?
Well, I appreciate that. It's hard to believe that this is the first one that you've been on as well versed. I mean, man, your skills at videos and commentary, and man, you do it all. So I'm really surprised, but honored that I am the first.
I mean, yeah, it's I put in a lot of work, really behind the scenes and stuff like that a lot of people don't see it, so it looks like I'm just never really doing anything. But now that things are starting to come to fruition and I got a little bit more time on my hands before things explode, again, what better time to hop on podcasts than as a guest than right now?
Awesome. And we will get to WSN and what's in store here in just a little bit. But would like our listeners, viewers, whatnot, to get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely.
So we know that you run a Wrestling Society network and all the bells and whistles that go into that. So my first question, of course, is, what got you into wrestling?
Man, as we talked a little before, I'm very excited because this isn't a question that I've never, I haven't ever really been asked publicly, so I've never been able to say it. And I think my story of how I got into wrestling is actually pretty cool. Um, so to kind of, you know, start off with on a little sad note, I grew up without my dad. He just pretty much wasn't there, and later on passed away. Uh, but I just never really had him there when I needed him, as a father when a young boy. And I had my mom and three sisters. So I was one boy in a house of four women. Um, and one of the things that I, always tell people is how cool my mom is. She did not know how to raise a boy. Um, so instead of just raising me like one of the girls, she decided to start turning on sports for me and watching old gunslinger movies. Some of the classics, some of the newer stuff. A lot of action movies. And one day we were at the public library, and this is when they did those old school, as most people watching this probably don't even know what they are, but the old videotapes, the VHS videotapes, where you can rent those from the local library.
Mhm.
And my mom she was a wrestling fan back in the day, with the Von Erichs and, Flair and Four Horsemen. So she saw an uh, it was WrestleMania. I think WrestleMania 6 um, was Hogan and Warrior, wasn't it?
I suck at 6 or 7.
I
I,
think it
I, I
was
suck at
6.
what number it is, but yeah, 6 or 7,
So they
somewhere in
had
that
they had
range.
WrestleMania 6, and let me kind of data. This is in the beginning, earlier, uh, or later part rather of 2000s. So it's even in that day is considered older. So I watched that, and I was just on the main event, Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, the crowd coming unglued. I believe it was in Canada. Um, I was already hooked. First time I've seen wrestling, and I'm sold on these two larger than life characters, and them just going back and forth, and all the way up to the ending. It was the coolest thing I had ever seen. So we went back. We got another one. I saw Hogan, and I was pretty big on Hogan, seeing him for the first time, and it was him and Sting.
Mhm.
For that first match, and again, I was just melted with amazement. Like, man, this is something else. Um, so I was already on cloud nine, and then come Christmas time, 2001, we got my mom got me WrestleMania 17 DVD. Now, keep in mind, the only wrestling I knew that existed was was way 1990s was probably the latest. So I don't know anything else exists. And then I watched WrestleMania 17, specifically the TLC ladder match. Um, Bro, I was a goner. That was it. That was the moment where I was never gonna go back. I mean, I became diehard, and then I realized that I get to watch this wrestling twice a week, with SmackDown and Raw. And so I was hooked, and my mom used that as motivation for me to get my homework done, school stuff taken care of, get my cleaning done, and so wrestling holds, a lot of people. My wife, when we got started dating, 9 years ago, um, she was very, or she didn't understand how somebody can have such a passion about one specific thing.
Mhm.
But when I explained it to her, it kind of, you could see it click. Wrestling, I didn't have a dad. I had father figures, but they were never at home with me.
Mhm.
So I would see them when I'm at church and stuff like that, but they were never at home with me. When I was at home, it was me, my sisters, my mom, and wrestling. So wrestling really was kind of put in a place where my dad should have been.
Mhm.
So wrestling became that fill, in that little hole that was missing, something that it was never gonna be away. It was never going to leave. It was always going to be there every week, guaranteed. And I learned a lot about passion and And I mean, it's storytelling at its finest. But yeah, so wrestling, I know that's probably the longest answer you'll get. I don't know about Bear next week. We'll see. But I mean that, yeah, so wrestling was pretty much there for me as a kid where my dad wasn't. And
Hmm.
I've never looked back, kind of like Unc was saying last week. Um, I've never taken a break. I've never stopped. I've been there through all the, the, you know, uh, through every bad storyline that there possibly is. I stuck it out. And there was times where I felt like leaving, but wrestling, that always starts reeling you back in right before you get ready to call it a quits. And my mom laughs at me because I'll be talking about, you know, WrestleMania 3 almost as if I lived it and I wasn't even thought of at the time, but I feel like I was there. So wrestling, old school, new school, in the middle. I've always been all about it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Not wrestling though, but so before I got into the wrestling side of podcasting, yes, I've been a wrestling fan all of my life. But I also before this did Star Wars podcasting.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
so I am a diehard Star Wars fan. My wife tolerates Star Wars. I mean, I'm even in the 501st costuming group. So
Oh,
we
wow.
get to dress up and go to events and put smiles on faces. We get to go to hospitals and cheer up kids, birthday parties and whatever. And uh, I got my passion from that from my mom. My dad wasn't around,
Oh,
and she took me to go see all three Star Wars movies. I was two when she took me to see the first one. Couldn't find a babysitter, so she took me with. I
yeah.
sat there mouth wide open. Couldn't believe. It's like quietest I've ever been, and then took me to Empire in '83, and then Jedi in '85, and ever since then I was hooked. But also at that time, also had the cartoon and or Saturday morning wrestling, and so I got to spend the mornings before she would get up to watch Captain Lou Albano tell you
Oh,
what
yeah.
adventures that Hulk Hogan and Coco Beware and Roddy Piper were going to go on in this animated adventure, and then you get to watch the wrestling afterwards. So yeah, so I can definitely relate to that. Very similar growing up stories, but mine was main Star Wars, and then I guess secondary wrestling. But I got to go to a lot of events because WWF at the time was right in my backyard. I lived 3 hours from New York City,
Oh, yeah.
so that's
Right
two and a
there.
half hours from Stanford. So yeah, I mean they were always there. So it was cool. We always had a blast doing it, and me and my friends would wrestle in the backyard and
Oh, yeah.
and just have fun with it. So hearing that story, I can guess, but all right. And I believe it was we even talked about this in the chat last week. Pro Hogan or anti Hogan? Where do you sit?
So there, and I think it's so funny, you being as pro Hogan and Bear being as anti Hogan. And I know this isn't really a fair answer to people, but I am half and half, and there's a lot of explanations behind it. I think Hogan is one of the greatest heels that to have ever lived, and when he plays a heel, he's fun to watch on TV. He's one of my favorite characters. But I believe it's as good as it is because he's naturally, a real villain. We've heard the stories, we've heard the, backstage politics, and you can believe what you want. I tend to believe most of what I hear because, it's no longer a rumor when everybody shares the same stories. I think Hogan was a a terrible person to work with, but character-wise, there's no denying he's one of the biggest characters in professional wrestling, and that's all entertainment. Pro wrestling, I don't want to completely crap all over him, because if you see some of his stuff in New Japan, you'll realize that he actually was a pretty good wrestler. Why he never did it in WWE, I guess he worked smarter and not harder. Um, uh, but I will say the ruthless aggression era Hogan, which most people hate, I actually genuinely loved. Um, where he was helping Zach Gowen, and it was also one of the Hogan's where he was actually putting people over, like Triple H and Taker, uh, and I loved Hogan, but when I finally decided to move on was his random match at SmackDown against Brock Lesnar, where Brock pretty much murdered him on screen. After that, I was like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna be, and I was a kid, so I'm like, I'm gonna be a fan of Brock, so he don't find me and kill me. Like, I'm all Brock Lesnar. But yeah, Hogan, I'm half and half. As a person, Terry Bollea, I don't like the guy. As Hulk Hogan, I have tons of memory. I mean, nostalgia city. Like, there's
Right.
so many great moments and memories have of him.
Yeah, and I can understand. And I say I'm pro Hogan because I don't think wrestling uh, would have reached the status that it did without him.
Oh, I
He was
agree with that.
he was that household name. And so my favorite Star Wars character of all time is the Emperor. I love bad guys. And yeah, Hogan, say your prayers, eat your vitamins, listen to your parents, blah blah blah. I never believed any of that. But the heel Hogan, and like you said, he's so good at it.
Oh yeah.
And when WCW, when he finally came out as the mystery guy and that huge heel turn, oh, it was amazing. And then when he brought it over to WWE, it was still good. And then you had the moment between Rock and Hogan, and we're gonna kiss and make better, and public image, blah blah blah. It kind of went um, down. I'm sorry, I'm still getting comments of people trying to join in.
You're good. I'll kind of pick up a little bit. Yeah, people, when he came back, they tried to do heel Hogan, but people didn't want to boo him. The nostalgia is what should have been just a nostalgia act, but people ended up loving him, wanting to see him, wanting to cheer him. WrestleMania, I think it was 18, Rock and Hogan is one of, if not one of the greatest wrestling matches and moments in history of Mania. But one of my favorite moments with Hogan, and it's so funny because it's not a major moment. It's such a small moment, but it was something I was watching, and I just thought it was the funniest thing. Was when Sting came out, Crow Sting, and he was just cleared the ring by himself, and he pointed his bat over at Hogan, and then while Kevin Nash, Scott Hall are holding Hogan back, he's like, "He's pointing at me! He's pointing at me!" It was just the fear he showed in his eyes was like that just made you love Sting so much more as a kid. You're just like, okay, Sting is the real deal. He is scary.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things I loved about Hogan was he can make you love him, hate him, and he can make you love or hate his opponent. So you got to give him credit with that.
Absolutely, yeah. So the Hogan question's out of the way.
Yeah.
So if you had to pick a wrestler, male, female, or whatever, that is your number one, your guy, who would it be and why?
I love the question, but it's also a hard question because it's almost like I have favorite wrestlers of different eras. It's never been just one guy and stayed one guy. The answer, of course, would be Eddie Guerrero, because he was, I mean, my hero at the time. I was a kid. I didn't have a dad. And this was just like the guy who showed that you can overcome all these things. And, so he was kind of my, hero. But I would say of any other era, like overall, he's probably my favorite. But today, it's a clear answer. And this year is really when it, solidified as my favorite current wrestler over everyone, and that is Will Ospreay. I mean, the dude, and there's an ongoing joke with people, in our group chat. I know nobody gets to really see that kind of stuff, but that I always say after every single Will Ospreay match, I go match of the year. Like that's and it's funny, but at the same time, it's like I watch it and I'm like, each match it's better in its own way. And whether like the Swerve and Ospreay match, I mean, it was incredible talent and incredible storytelling and incredible mix of emotions, and and I saw an article, and I'm going to quote it. I don't know how reliable the source is, so don't hold me to it. But it said that Will Ospreay wanted to have his, everybody thought it was Wembley and Swerve and Ospreay at Wembley. But there's a rumor going around that Ospreay wanted to have the match early so people wouldn't be saying that, Swerve was just a placeholder until Wembley. And he wanted to set an example and show that it's more than okay to take a loss against a world champion. And if that is true, I made a post that just solidifies my answer as he is, my favorite current wrestler ever. And if it's not Ospreay and Swerve 2 at Wembley, I'm hoping we see Ricochet and Ospreay 2 at Wembley, which would be, just the picture of their first match, in a smaller stadium. And then them, currently at Wembley in front of, potentially 90, 80,000 people would be so cool. But yeah, Ospreay, that's my easy answer for current today.
All right. Yeah. And I could see that. Yeah. He definitely throws really good matches. And I think and as you said, it's difficult. It really is difficult. One of my favorites, I think would be, I'd have to say Stone Cold.
Oh yeah.
From his transition from WCW over to ECW, which you really didn't see much of him there. It was mainly because he was hurt. Yeah. And then eventual, run at the top in WWE. Anytime he spoke, I wanted to listen to what he was going to say, because whatever he was saying was going to be important.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't just catchphrases. It was just a matter of a fact. This is what it is. This is how it's going to go down. And like it or leave it, we're going to go down this road. And I really bought into the character. I mean, I could tell a lot of different stories about different wrestlers. That'll probably be a bear thing when we start swapping stories. It's just he was that larger than life personality that his sheer will brought about so much change. And so you did mention different eras, and you've talked about a couple of different eras. Is there a type of era, whether it's like the older wrestling, whether it's ruthless aggression or attitude era, or the PG era that we're in now? Is there which era would you say you could just watch no matter what at any time And if that was the only way to do wrestling, that's the way that you would want it done.
That is probably the easiest question of the night. Ruthless Aggression Era, hands down. I think Ruthless Aggression Era was, and this is going to be a hot take, and I know a lot of people may, criticize this, but I think the Ruthless Aggression Era was more fun to watch than the Monday Night Wars. I felt like Raw and SmackDown genuinely felt like two different companies. Monday was definitely more the theatrical and more of the bigger guys and storytelling and it was just like you're watching a movie and these guys are getting to fight it out. And then SmackDown was like a sport. It was and they had great storytelling as well, but it was like today when you watch SmackDown and Raw, you get 3 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, but you feel like you get just 5 hours of WWE a week. Back then in the Ruthless Aggression Era was you get, at the time was 2 hours of Raw, 2 hours of SmackDown, and it felt like two different shows, two different brands, and they weren't on the same night like, WCW was, where you had to pick one. It wasn't as easy as just being able to, record one, watch one later, or have, two, like you had to pick, and I hated that. And, I got to enjoy SmackDown on Friday and Raw on Monday. And, that was things to look forward to, storylines, not to mention, the talent pool that they had. I mean, you're talking Prime, Cena, Brock Lesnar, Undertaker as the American Badass, one of my favorite, Undertakers, Kurt Angle, or Perk Angle, as most people like to call him, Eddie Guerrero, and then even, and I know now that you kind of know the politics and everything, you're more smart to the business. But before then, the Triple H, WCW burial party where it was just WCW star after star after star. Now it's just like, man, that's kind of tacky. But at the time, Triple H, one of the biggest villains, and you put your mindset, where mine is, and I'm a kid, I'm thinking this is the guy to come and beat Triple H. And I get all excited and it doesn't happen. Now I hate Triple H more. So the next guy comes in. This is the guy to beat Triple H. And they kept kids hooked because you're just waiting like, who is it going to be? Who's going to be the one to finally dethrone? And it just wasn't happening. And it's so ironic that the one who officially did was Randy Orton himself, who was part of, and it's storytelling like that as a child where you don't pay attention to the politics of things. It's captivating. You're like, this is exciting. And then, of course, anything with Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar. And I mean, anything is, whether it's emotional, it's comedy, whatever it is, there was nothing there. I don't remember one thing from the Ruthless Aggression Era that I watched and thought, man, I wish I didn't see that. There's stuff in the Attitude Era where I feel like, man, I didn't wish I didn't see that. And there's stuff in, of a lot of stuff, unfortunately, in the PG era. But Ruthless Aggression Era, and I might be biased because that's, where I really was most passionate. But I would go back and watch it. Oh, and I do actually. I say I would. I watch it almost every day. Just random episodes. It takes me back. Ruthless Aggression Era is definitely my favorite overall era, and I wish they would kind of bring it back to the layout where, SmackDown and Raw were just complete two separate companies. Collision and Dynamite were two separate companies. That kind of feel. I feel like that would really hook people a lot more, and it wouldn't feel so diluted and so, like it's just a runoff of what you saw earlier in the week. Ruthless Aggression Era for sure.
It's a great era. I think if I were to pick, I loved the Monday Night Wars just because at that time, especially living in New England, WCW kept trying to come up and battle WWE right there in their backyard. So we would get a Monday Night Raw, and then we would get a Wednesday Night Thunder, and then WWE would come back with a SmackDown taping. And then, if we were lucky, we'd get a pay per view that Sunday, followed by a WCW Nitro. We would have almost a solid week of wrestling there in my hometown in Providence, and it was great. I loved it, and seemed like it was always there, and there was so much wrestling, kind of like now. It's so much wrestling that was going on at the time, and it was more kayfabe than it is now. So you really bought into it. But
sorry to cut you off real quick, but I will say, looking back now, the Monday Night Wars was definitely incredible. Now that you can go back and watch each one separate, the main reason I didn't like it was because I felt forced between the two main shows that you had to pick one.
Yeah.
But overall, it ended up being an incredible thing for the wrestling business. But I also didn't get to live in the back, have it in my backyard like you did. So that's a plus.
It had a lot of knocks though. The Attitude Era, lots of exploitation that I didn't always agree with, especially of the female wrestlers or valets or whatever. I really could have done without. But as far as wrestling, and I'll tell you one Eddie Guerrero story. Went to WCW Nitro, and Jericho was still there, Dean Malenko, and Eddie Guerrero, and enjoyed the evening. Then went out to eat at a restaurant after taping was, and there's the three of them sitting at a table.
Wow.
After just beating the snot out of each other. And Jericho, I went over to the table and I said, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to thank you guys for entertaining us tonight. You put it all out on the line. You sacrifice your bodies. I just wanted to tell you, as a fan, I really appreciate what you were doing. And Jericho was like, tired of autograph seekers and blah, blah, blah. We're just trying to enjoy a meal. I'm like, I don't want an autograph. I just wanted to say thank you. I was at the show. I enjoyed it. Eddie Guerrero shook my hand and said, I really appreciate that. It takes a lot of, guts to come over in the first place, and to not want anything in return. That means a lot to me. And Malenko didn't say a damn thing. He just kind of sat there and just
per usual.
Yeah. But Eddie was super nice, and and he's like, do you, I'll sign something if you have something to sign. I'm like, no, I don't want that. Please enjoy your meal. I just wanted to say thank you. And so it's amazing. Eddie Guerrero, always followed his career, and superb talent.
One of the, just real quick, two things real fast. Of course, back in the day, the way they, treated women, not just WWE, but really just all wrestling. One of the cool things with my mom, because she would sit me down, let me watch it. And, of course, she doesn't just let me unmonitored, watch whatever. She would use, the Divas matches which were 9 times out of 10 a bra and panties match. She would use that as, okay, now you got, about 10, 15 minutes to hurry and go, get your stuff ready for tomorrow, get stuff ready for bed, and would make it a time thing. Like, I got to hurry before, the guys come back on. And so she was real good with that. And another thing with my mom, like you were talking about Malenko and Guerrero and Jericho, after beating each other up and then seeing them sit together, my mom, who, she grew up here in Fort Worth, so she was Von Erichs. So, as any Texas, person would know, she was just, she just loved, they were heroes.
Mhm.
And at the time, you didn't really understand what kayfabe was. It was just real. Like, just
Right.
that's what it was. So when one of the Von Erichs died, my mom, they had it on TV because here in Texas, that's like a hero, a Texas hero dying. So they had the funeral on television on the local, channel. And my mom saw Ric Flair show up in a, suit at his funeral. She was so mad. She was like, "Why in the hell is Ric Flair here? That's so disrespectful." I mean, she really was offended. Like, she was so mad that Ric Flair would have the audacity to show up to a Von Erich funeral. And now knowing what she does now, she looks back and laughs. But yeah, Von Erichs were royalty here, if you will. But yeah,
Yeah.
those are my two mom stories, I guess.
I remember one time I shook Fritz von Erich's hand, and he was older at the
Yeah,
time, way retired, uh, and I just marveled at his hand. It looked like a boxing glove. It was just
man.
big. The only other hand that I could compare it to, and it's not even uh, remotely close, is Big Show. Show's hands are like double mine, and it's it, I mean, there I go back into the stories again. But Show is an incredible person. But yeah, Fritz's hands. I mean, even when he took a picture with you and he crunched up, it's like almost doubled in size, and it looked like a boxing glove. And man, I always kept thinking, how many people he's put into the Iron Claw, and I could see that his hand being able to really hurt somebody.
Yeah.
And at the time as a kid, and at that point I was in, I guess I was in East Texas, because that would have been middle school, end of middle school. It was absolutely insane getting to meet him. Man, no lie, Texas is still Von Erich country.
Absolutely.
Always will be. Always will be. But thank you for letting us get a glimpse behind the man that is the CEO of WSN. So we're going to transition now over to said network. And what do you want to say? First off, what do you want to say about the network before we get into the details of it? So,
Man, what do I want to say about the network? It has definitely become, I mean, it's grown into be a part of me and who I am. And my everyday, I live, breathe, I sweat it. Like, it's WSN and Brady Owens are almost synonymous with each other. Like Hulk Hogan and Terry Bollea. Like, it's one person. But it's still, I wake up and I'm in amazement of from where it started to where it came from, to where it is now. It just blows my mind. But I mean, WSN has become, and the people involved, it's family. That's one of the things I can really, include it with is WSN and family. It's all one. And I'm talking about, the team at WSN, the affiliates, and even the, fans and followers and subscribers and everybody involved. It's all a society. It's family. But yeah, I can't really explain it too much more without going into full detail. So I guess we'll just start with the questions and go from
all
there.
right. So, how did it start?
Um, it's so crazy too because I get Facebook messages on a regular, probably minimum of 10 a day of people who want to either get their brand, product, podcast, whatever, to where WSN is today. and they ask, how do you do it? Or whether it's that, or it's just advice. How do you, get to where you are? And it's so funny because I was once that person asking other people, how do you get to where how do you, and I would look at these successful podcasters and successful, content creators. And to me, and I know to everybody, it looks like it came overnight. It looks like they started and were successful. We are a 6-minute ab generation. Everybody wants it and they want it now. And the quicker you can learn that that's not realistic, the quicker you can begin to really start growing. Stop looking for all the, get rich quick schemes and stuff like that, get famous and buying viewers and views and all this stuff. Quit it, because you won't grow. You're only hurting yourself. All that to be said, WSN started, I was working, ironically, how I'm working now. I was working a night shift. And I was probably about 20, 21. And I had just started dating my now wife. It was about 9 years ago. And I really was like, I want to do something with my life. But I don't know what. I don't know what I want to do. I have no idea. I did my basics in college and quit. That was it. And if college is for you, that's great. I just think it's, looking for a job that's going to help pay off your college debt for the rest of your life. Like, that's just my opinion. Everybody has their own. College was out of the answer for me. So I was looking at what I want to do, and I was at night listening to this sports radio station. For the first time, I thought, how cool would it be if there was a wrestling radio station? And I just started Googling wrestling radio and stuff like that. This is how far behind I was, and it blows people away. I didn't know podcasts were a thing at this point. And this is like 2017. So I should have known podcasts existed, but I didn't. I just thought it was a random app on your phone that had no function, whatever. So looking at wrestling radio, saw wrestling podcasts, and there was only a handful, maybe 3 or 4 total, and they were big name people. Sam Roberts was the only person I didn't recognize who I listened to. And I was just like, man, this guy's got it. He's got it going on. I started looking like, is this something you could eventually make a living off of? And sure enough, it is. But it requires dedication, passion, time, money. It requires a lot. But one of the things that I had messaged Sam Roberts, probably a month later, he finally responded to me. As a kid, not kid, 21, but I'm like, oh my God, this guy knows who I am. Like, that's that feeling. But he responded. He said, if you're passionate about it, just go for it, and the passion will carry you through all the trials. And one of the coolest things that Sam Roberts, has ever said that I heard and thought, I'm going to use that. If you're passionate about it, you're not doing it for money. You're not doing it to become famous. You're not doing it for anything besides it's what you love to do. Well, then eventually you put enough dedication and passion into it, it will pay you back in the long run. So, I started a podcast by myself. Didn't know how to launch it. I would get maybe 1 viewer every week, and it was my mom. And my mom is my number one supporter, has been since day one, my number one advocate. But she was always encouraging and wanted me to keep going. And but I had a dream when I was younger, and not a literal dream, but figurative dream, a vision, if you will. And this is back when you had the bunny ears on TV. It was before DirecTV, where you could flick through the channels, and you just had whatever local channels you had. And of course SmackDown would come on 21, and Raw would come on whatever channel, 33 or whatever. And I remember thinking how cool it would be if there was one channel. You got your news channel, cartoons channel, soap opera channel. It would be so cool if there was one channel that just played wrestling. Old stuff, new stuff, just wrestling. Before even DirecTV was a thing. And I was like, that would just be so cool. And I convinced myself it was out there. So I would try flicking through it, every channel over and over and over, even though it was just repeating, thinking I was going to find a wrestling channel. Obviously never did. And then DirecTV came out, and they had a channel where it was like WWE home video, and they would just kind of play clips. It was like, this is what I was thinking about. And I thought it was so cool because it was like, I had this vision before it was reality. And now it's reality. And, and it was so cool to me to be able to watch some of that stuff and a lot of documentaries. And so I started thinking how cool it would be, to have a DirecTV list that was nothing but wrestling. You could choose whether it's documentaries or whatever. That's how into wrestling I was. Nothing else mattered. And then eventually WWE Network came out, the original one, the WWE app, $9.99. And that was almost, like a similar vision, but it was just a little before my thought. I wasn't really thinking that far ahead. And Vince McMahon, you got to give him credit. Young Vince McMahon, he had thought of this before, way before. But I, getting smarter to the business and learning, about YouTube shows and stuff like that. As I was working on my podcast, 2017, I wanted to create something for other podcasters, other YouTube creators, other people, just like the WWE app, but for fans, ran by fans. Like, that's what I wanted. I wanted to create my own shows and stuff like that. And so I started trying to make my own content, learning, making different YouTube videos, and I'll share some clips if you want to add them later. It's embarrassing now, but I was trying, and I couldn't produce content quick enough. And I was looking at all these other YouTubers. I'm like, man, they put new shows out once a week, sometimes multiple times a week. I don't know how they do it. And so I started studying marketing, studying advertising, studying promotions, studying social media. I've learned about everything you can learn in college, and I learned it for free by just Googling it. So here I am at the time, got about 4,000 Instagram followers and people who are just active on it. And they just love, anytime I do put something out, they love it, but I just couldn't keep up. So I eventually just called it quits. It was too hard. And then I came back, tried it again, and it was just too hard. I did that for about 4 years. So the people who look and they message, how do you get WSN just to be booming? They don't realize that for 4 years, I tried and I failed for 4 consecutive years. It was not overnight. It was not success. 4 years is a long time of just failing. But eventually I saw a video clip of Mr. Beast. And I don't know the guy personally. I'm not a fan of his as far as content and stuff like that. But I saw a clip of him, and it was when he started bringing his team more on camera, because there was a time where it was just him, and he was one of the guys I looked at. I'm like, how does this guy do it? And it dawned on me, like, this dude has a team. Yeah. Like, that's how he does it. He's got a team. So I went on Facebook and posted in 100 different wrestling group chats. I want to start a wrestling podcast. Who wants to join? I had probably about 50 plus people, message me and send in videos. And I got the 4, Tevin G, Kuya Clayton, and Professor Bear. And when I heard their clips about why they're a wrestling fan, it was easy. You had Tevin, who's very on the controversial side and likes hot topics and hot takes where people usually think differently. You had Bear, who's just a natural historian and enthusiast, and then Kuya, who's more of a today's wrestling and enjoys it today. So I found my guys. We started doing a podcast, started growing. People started loving it. And I did not tell them what my future plans were for WSN for about 5 months. I just wanted to make sure these guys are going to stay. They're going to click. We're going to be good. Those guys ended up staying, clicking, and we'd be good. And we, weren't really doing incredible as far as numbers. But even when we would have one viewer, for an entire stream, it was just fun. I mean, we would turn the stream off and be talking about wrestling and then apologize to our viewers because we felt like we were still live, because we were just lost in conversation. But then after I shared my ideas and plans and goals for them, they were as on board as you can possibly be. And so we started putting in the work, and started making different kinds of content. And then we decided to start reaching out to other podcasters and other content creators and other people so we can really put, everybody involved in this. And it has turned into what it is today. And in my opinion, besides your WWE, AEW, TNA, it's probably one of the biggest wrestling networks that there is and that there will be. And I take pride in that. And everybody listening, if you want to become big and you want to do it because you're passionate about it, get yourself a team together of people that you can trust and that have the same passion. But that's where it started. I know that was a real long answer. Sorry about that, but
No, absolutely. And I was just going to let you go, for as long as you wanted to talk on it. It's very important. And and I completely understand. I would listen to podcasts here and there, but it was always famous people. I never thought that could be, every day you, me, or Jim across the street could do it. I didn't start doing podcast until the pandemic. And what else was I going to do? I mean, you really couldn't leave the house.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, you know what? I can order all this stuff, have it dropped off at the house, no contact. So I bought my microphone, I bought camera, I bought a new computer, I bought the lights, I bought everything. And it was like, oh, yeah, I'm just going to give it a shot. And I didn't know if people would even be interested in what I had to say. But I didn't care because I had all of this stuff in my head and I wanted to get it out, whether it was Star Wars or other pop culture nonsense or comic books or the MCU or anything. I did talk about wrestling on pop culture. I would do at least once a month, would have a wrestling centered podcast going. And but yeah, and we had a team. It wasn't. It was what we called, a network, and it's still out there, and I still have friends there, but it's kind of gone down a little bit, and it's not. It's now that the world returned back to normal. Passions, and Star Wars is a hugely divided fan base right now.
Right.
Whether the new stuff is any good, and if you don't like the new stuff, then you're a bad person, and if you like the new stuff, then you're a bad person. There's no middle ground. So I got burnt out on it, trying to get people to meet on common ground and talk about stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what, I'm done talking about that for right now. And I started talking with Donovan, and I was like, man, I have all these ideas. I don't know what to do. And he's like, dude, you're good. Just, switch gears and head to the wrestling side. And he's like, you have a lot of knowledge about it. And that was about the time that he was starting up Downtime in the Ring. And so he was doing his stuff, and then I helped support him and blast it out there for him. And that's how I got with you. And man, I tell you, the first time that I got into the group and started seeing all the stuff that was there, and then got to the app on my Roku and Fire TV, because depending on which house, I have two different types of TVs, which area of the house I'm in, I normally have it on, and I'm watching something on there, which I still need to catch up on a few shows that I'm probably a few years behind now. But just the passion and the dedication that you showed, and everybody else that was involved showed. I'm like, man, how can you not either support it or 100% fully buy into it? It's contagious, your enthusiasm and passion, and it's absolutely amazing. and I had a bunch more questions. Now I'm trying to remember what they were.
Well, we
So
started with how it started off.
right. Yeah, and we kind of evolved. So how many are on the team right now, approximately?
Oh gosh, approximately, I would just give a safe answer and say in between 15 to 20.
Mhm.
That's without counting. But there are, well, I definitely want to give shout outs to specific people. My right hand man, and literally none of this would be possible without Professor Bear. He is, uh, so he doesn't work anymore. He's on disability from some injuries, and um, he pretty much just didn't really have anything going on for him. So he, and I know he's okay with me sharing this because I've heard him share it on the other podcasts before. But me offering this position to him as, now co-president of WSN, it gave him almost new life. And he was just, if I can do it, let me do it and figure things out. And so he always says, I kind of threw him a lifeline. But what he doesn't realize was he was my lifeline, because without him, it would have been a 5th consecutive year of failing. So I couldn't do it and couldn't continue without him. And he is, my, not only my right hand man, but he's my best friend. He's one of the people I text multiple times every day. I'm on the phone with him. 90% of the time it's business, but ironically, the business we have is our passion. And then Kuya, he's taken some personal time off, but he's still family, and I still talk to him. And he was a founder, him and Tevin both. Some of the biggest supporters in our 2K stuff, which is our most popular, wouldn't be anything without Kuya. He was, one of the main editors, story writers, putting shows together, one of the favorite characters, commentary. Tevin, senior vice president, he's our controversy guy. If there's a hot take, he'll let you know about it. And it's almost fun to argue with him on live streams because of how heated it gets. But at the end of the day, it's all love. It's all love, baby. We're all friends. Donovan, who's the new president, he was already putting in a ton of work and showing a ton of passion before he was even officially with WSN. And it was more, like Bear and I said, is like, I want him on the team, but he's going to have to ask. We can't. I don't want, because he has DTITR, downtime in the ring. We don't want to pull him away from his dream, his passion, his, so I'm not even going to give him an offer because I don't want him to have to feel like he has to make a decision. But me and Bear wanted him on, and eventually he asked, not to be, a high up or he just wanted to be with WSN, be on the team. Had a lot of things that he could offer, and I knew he could, and he was already doing a lot of it, so it was kind of a no-brainer to bring him on. Our new vice president, Unk, he's been putting in overtime hours, just because he believes in WSN. He'll call me up, he'll ask questions, he'll, what can I do? He'll do it. He's always available when, I need something done, and if he's not, he'll get it done instantly. And of course, as if anybody is watching and doesn't know, DJ Wiseman here is also putting in a ton of work, especially where beta testing the website is involved, and the app, keeping me on my toes on the app, keeping things fresh, which I know I need to update some things, so bear with me. Amy Berryman deserves a shout out. She runs our social media pages, specifically Facebook, not as a face of the company or a major part. She's more in the background. But I take pride. I've said it before. I said it in our press conference we had. I believe WSN, the Wrestling Society Network Facebook group, is the cleanest Facebook group in all of the wrestling groups on Facebook. Between Professor Bear and Amy Berryman, they have notifications that alert them anytime there's a post. If it's harassing, if it's scams, if it's spam, if it's non-wrestling related, it's taken off within a minute of being posted. Anybody who needs to be suspended or banned, it's done within a minute of realization. Our Facebook page is as clean as it can get. And that's a huge thanks to Amy Berryman and Professor Bear. Gavin the Blade Hayes, who's, he's working probably 15 plus hours a day, 7 days a week, it feels like. He kept the podcast going, Wrestling Society podcast going as the main voice, and created one of our most popular shows, the B&B Bear and Blade Show. He's always going to be family. And man, I could keep going. It will keep going. So if I didn't shout you out, know that if you're on the WSN team, I love you. And if you're one of the affiliates, Chris and people that I may have left out, Bree, y'all are family. So thank you. Wouldn't be going without y'all. But yeah, time reason I can't keep going, or I'd go forever.
So you did mention a couple of different types of content. So what is on the WSN as far as types of content?
Types of content. There's wrestling documentaries, wrestling movies. When I say wrestling movies, I don't mean wrestling movies. It's movies with professional wrestlers in them. And there's actual pro wrestling, whether it's PLEs or it's weekly, wrestling promotions for some of the, wrestling independents best, Riot Pro Wrestling, CCW, MAW, and a lot more to come. There's, wrestling game shows, talk shows, podcasts, biographies, wrestling figure shows, which is actually pretty incredible, the dedication those guys put into creating pay-per-views with action figures, almost like the, what do you call them? The steel frame shows, the
stop motion.
Yeah, stop motion. Like you get lost in it and you start thinking that, feeling like it's real. Yeah, there's so much cool stuff on there. If you're a wrestling fan and you're not, on there, what are you waiting for, man? Like, you're only hurting yourself.
So one of the things that you've mentioned previously, but didn't touch on there, and with me being a former manager for a game store and a diehard gamer since the Atari 2600 in television and ColecoVision, you also provide 2K content. So for what people that might not know is like, what is 2K content? So they have a wrestling game. It is on the PS4 or Xbox, or I guess the PC now. And it's put out by 2K Entertainment. It's called WWE 2K 22, 23, 24, 25. They're on 24 right now. They have so much in there that you could do to create your own wrestler, create your own promotion, rings, titles, matches. It's really involved and is absolutely amazing to watch. So talk a little bit about the 2K stuff.
I'm very happy you brought that up, because with WSN, it would almost be a sin if I didn't discuss it a little bit more, considering that is what blew up and really got us to where we are. Like Wise Man said, you can create, the creation suite's almost, an unlimited, variety of things that you could do. So me, Kuya, and Professor Bear, we decided to make our own promotion. Take out WWE logos, take out WWE, songs, themes, everything WWE related, and as much as we could, everything 2K related. And there's a lot of other 2K promotions out there, but here's what sets WSN 2K apart. And I take pride, and I have yet to see anybody have a 2K show that can compare to ours. And that's not cockiness, that's just confidence. And if I felt like there was one better than us, then we are not working hard enough. So, but ours are set apart because all the characters that we have are, whether they're either independent wrestlers, real independent wrestlers who have agreed to be a part of the show, there's one superstar that we have who agreed to be, and that's Maven. Tough Enough One winner decided to be a part of the show, and our followers. A lot of people might not know that, but some of our more popular characters: Rusty, Miguel X, Kaylin Howard, Noah, Ray May, Caleb T. I mean, I can keep going on and on. Those are followers of ours, guys. Those are real life people. Like, those are people who we take and either face scan, or we create, the style that they want. Those are all real people who watch themselves compete in matches, people who they kayfabe online as their character. And, like, it's a passion. They get to live their dreams through us. And we have, and we're getting ready to get it back going again. But we have 2 shows, Proving Ground and Underground. Like I said, it's ruthless aggression style. Both shows feel completely different. 2 different commentary teams, 2 different rosters, 2 different, everything. Managers and all that. Professor Bear's the manager of Proving Ground. Kuya Clayton's the manager of Underground. They really compete to try to, and kind of like the ratings war, but it's a viewership war. You get views on YouTube, so who can get the most views? So fun. And the people who have the characters on whichever show, they really try to push their show. Make sure you're watching, Underground. Make sure you're watching Proving Ground each week. We have 3 story writers. Me, Professor Bear, Kuya Clayton. We each write different stories to keep each storyline fresh. I really am the deciding factor of who I want to fight at this upcoming pay-per-view. So I want this guy and I want this guy. Professor Bear, write the story. Or Kuya, write the story. Write the storyline, however you want. So every storyline feels different. I was able to write the storyline for my character. I don't know if it's backwards, but Mr. Owens, I am the good guy.
It's there. Yep.
The story behind that is I wanted to be a heel so bad. I wanted to be a heel, but I wanted to be one of those obnoxious heels who thinks he's a good guy. So for one of the stories in season 2, and I'll try to make it quick, we had the tag team of First Grade, which were, the reason their name is the First Grade is because that's when they met each other, the best friends since the first grade. And they just really weren't a great tag team for us, losing matches and disappointing Mr. Owens. And I was Professor Bear's the manager of Proving Ground, but I'm the owner. So I always, step on Bear's toes. And if Bear has a good idea, I make it seem like it was my idea. Just a real cocky SOB. So we had a battle of the brands kind of match, and I was more favored for Proving Ground, and our tag team lost First Grade. So I was real disappointed. So I came out, I called him out, and I said, listen, don't worry, because I'm not going to fire the both of you. Instead, I'm going to give you an opportunity, because I am a good guy. I don't believe in just discipline. I believe in opportunities. So I'm going to give you all a match. And if you win, well, then your jobs are safe. But if you lose, well, then you're fired. But, before I forget, your opponents are each other. So I make them face each other, and I tell them it's an opportunity. Go and save your job. Be the hero. And then, one of them beats the other one. So I go to AJM, who beat his best friend. Tell him, like, man, do you hear these people? They're booing you. Like, why would you put your best friend on the streets like that? Like, that's absolutely sickening. So I think I'm the good guy, and I'm really cocky. But there's fun storylines like that. And then there's storylines that really make you feel emotional, and some big moments. And, and another thing that's really sets us apart is I just counted before we got on. I knew it'd be a topic. We have 38 voiceover actors and actresses who do voiceovers for characters. So that way it gives these characters real, character. It makes them feel real. And this is really cool that I don't get to, share with a lot of people, is the people doing voiceovers. I think like 80% of them are independent wrestlers who use this as an opportunity to build their promo skills, to work on their promo skills. So I give them the script, and then they use it in character. And so there's independent wrestlers who are gaining from our 2K show. They're getting to build their character. And then, of course, when we started doing pay-per-views, we took off. We were getting about 100 views per, with the weekly show. And then our first pay-per-view, I think, hit like a couple hundred, and second pay-per-view hit about 400. And then our third pay-per-view, Risk It All, which you can see currently on YouTube at the Wrestling Society Network, that hit 2,000 just out of nowhere. We're like, dang, like that's crazy. And so we started pushing it and promoting it. The weekly show started getting more views, around 1,000. Then the pay-per-view after that, our biggest pay-per-view, Wrestle Forever. I mean, that's our Super Bowl, our WrestleMania. We had a voiceover actress sing America the Beautiful before the show. Like, it felt emotional almost, when we were sitting there recording commentary. Mm-hmm. It was almost, I could see, Bear's emotions starting to get hot, like, because of how far it's turned. Nobody expected it to be this big. No one expected it to be what it is. I mean, we had at this time about 6,500 views on our other show and 3,000, average on the weekly show. Well, when we saw the numbers at the end of the month for Wrestle Forever, my goal was to hit 8,000 views. Well, when I looked at it, it was just under 13,000 views. And that was just beyond me. That was crazy. And so we came back with season 2, average of 8,000 views, some a little high, some a little low. So 2K has become the biggest thing for WSN, and it is coming back. There's so much work going on, and storylines just get better. But yeah, 2K is WSN pretty much.
So I've loved it. I've watched as much as I could of the 2K content, and you and I have talked about some 2K content, but as a little forewarning to the audience out there, Proving Ground and Underground are great, but you haven't seen anything until you see the blueprint live and in action. Doesn't matter what show it's on, the blueprint is where coming. It is. Had to throw that in there. Sorry.
I love it.
But yes, yeah. But that's another thing. You mentioned that you take fans and you can put them in the game. And you and I talked about it, and I showed you pictures of my wrestler that I created, and I love creating content as a former artist, sort of artist anyway. I was in art school and decided that just wasn't for me. I love to create things, and this combining art and my passion for wrestling. And I'm going wild trying to create the new Wyatt 6 here, but it's pretty cool. So one, thank you for putting that out there for people to gamer geeks like me, wrestling geeks like me, to have an outlet and get and watch something that we really are passionate about that not a lot of people get. And I know that they feature up, down, down on some WWE programming, but the gamer side of wrestling doesn't get the recognition that it deserves. So thank you for that. So before we get to the news, just a few headlines that I thought I'd get your opinion on. Anything else? Any last words about WSN?
Are you wanting to talk about the website later, or are you wanting to drop the news about that now?
So, that was going to be one of my things. Was I did mention that you can get it. Where can you get it right now?
So right now you can view the 2K, everything that we talked about on the WSN app, on Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick, Amazon Fire, whichever you have. Just go there, type in WSN. Now there is 2. I think mostly on Roku, one that has like the wrestlers on it. That was a trial one that does not work. And the one with just our logo, the WSN logo with the red square and background. That's the one that you want to download. And there's hours and hours and hours of content, wrestling, reality shows, and so much more that you can just get lost into watching. Are you wanting to wait on the
No.
Okay.
So we did talk about a little bit about a website or app. So why don't you fill us in on that? And I know there's a countdown.
There is a countdown, and if you're watching this, I know that it didn't air live on Facebook, and I will say that's partially on me because I threw it out literally last second, said, hey, let's go live on Facebook. And it did not quite work out the way we wanted to, but that is not Wise Man's fault. I did not give him any prep time for it. So coming out, there's a countdown, and I don't know if this will be out before then or if it's, after, because it comes out Thursday. I will, let me just real quick just pull up the countdown and see where we are exactly, so I can tell everybody exactly at this point where we are on the release date. 2 days, 3 hours, 38 minutes, and currently 47 seconds. In that time, there will be the official launch of WSN Plus, which will be the Wrestling Society website. And guys, the tagline is "In a World of Wrestling." And I don't think you really understand just how much of in a world of wrestling it is until you're living in it. We will have a social media style platform, a chat platform where you can post GIFs, pictures, videos, where if you're watching a pay-per-view or a show by yourself and you want to talk about it with other wrestling fans, hop on the WSN chat and talk about it. You don't got to watch it alone. If you don't want spoilers, do not open it because there will be spoilers. Then the WSN app will be available on mobile. We're working on the user-friendly version of it, but it's still available. You can watch stuff on the WSN app on your phone, tablet, or computer. We will have a podcast room, which is so cool. When I was a kid, or I say kid, when I was 20, and I found out about wrestling podcasts, there was probably 4 or 5 of them. And again, those were main ones. I wish I listened to every episode of every podcast, and then I had to wait, and I couldn't listen to any more. And that killed me, especially considering I worked a job that required me to listen to something. We have a podcast room, which currently we have 25, 26, 27 after adding Running the Ropes and 2.5 Heels. There'll be 27 podcasts that you can go and listen to. Find the ones you love the most, or if you're like me, just listen to one every hour. Listen to a new one. There's so many, including Downtime in the Ring, including for our original diehards, the Wrestling Society podcast in its 30 episodes that were recorded will be available right there. And you have all that, and plus, which is going to be live as well for pre-order, we have the WSN shop. That's a big one. It will officially launch on Thanksgiving Day, but pre-orders open as soon as the website goes live. We got some first edition, really dope, shirts, and our 2K wrestling merchandise line is sick. If you are a fan of our 2K stuff, you gotta see these shirts. They are dope. We're going to be selling shirts at first, but we're going to be selling cups, shorts, jackets, hoodies, lunch boxes, hats, pretty much anything you could think of. And we're going to sell it WSN branded, as well as our affiliate brands. Like we'll have merchandise for Running the Ropes, 2.5 Heels, Downtime in the Ring, some Original Wrestling Society podcast merch, some of the coolest stuff, including collectible limited time only items that will randomly pop up, like one, and I'm just going to give a teaser, and I'm talking it's random, but it's pretty freaking cool, and it's limited time, so you don't want to miss out on it. But we will be offering a WSN branded plate, a dish plate. and it can be signed by the staff or not. It's your call. But limited time only, we'll have a dish plate that you can buy as a collectible or buy a set if you want to. And that's just one of the many random limited time only offers that we're going to have. So WSN Shop is going to be a solid thing on there. Plus much, much more. I can keep going, but time's sake, I probably can't. So tune in yourself. Thursday, 6 p.m. Central Time. The website will be live, and go get lost in it. I'm telling you that. It's going to be pretty sweet. And you can talk to every single one of us, me, Wiseman, Unc, Bree, Professor Bear, Donovan, Chris. You can talk to all of us personally right there on the app.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet how it's all coming together. I really love the layout and the look of it. The feel is so natural. It's the crew's done a great job with it. I can't wait for everyone to be able to see it, to use it, and to get lost in it, and to be like me and be screaming for the next episodes to come out. Come on already, let's get it done. But all in good time, people. All in good time. So anything else that I should have mentioned that I didn't mention, or we've covered a lot?
We've covered a lot. With it being my first interview, there's a lot that I wanted to talk about. So sorry that this episode is going to be a little longer, but
it's all good. We all got time. It's just time.
I want to say thank you to everybody, all of our original fans, Rusty, Raymond May, who goes by Ray May. I'm not even going to begin. I love you all. I can't name every one of you that were there in the beginning. I'd be here forever, but there's people that were our first dozen fans that are still fans today. Thank you. You were not forgotten. You were loved. And most of you have your own 2K merchandise coming out. So it pays off to be a first fan. But I love you guys so much. But anyways, let's talk about what's going on in wrestling today.
All right. So we did have a pay-per-view this last weekend. General thoughts, rating, whichever, on Forbidden Door 3.
I don't do the rating system simply because everybody has their own ratings. So I'm just going to give you my thoughts.
Sure.
Incredible. The one thing I love about AEW, WWE is getting a lot better at it, but AEW know how to present their women. The amount of wrestling matches that you get on a single pay-per-view is great. The match time, those women's matches were not quick 5-minute matches. They were lengthy storytelling matches, and they were matches that made you think, oh my gosh, is this actually going to happen? And, they really hooked you in. And one of the things that me and Barry used to always argue about is women's matches being bathroom break matches. Nothing against the women. It's just because the story writers and promotions didn't give them enough, fuel to be able to fill storylines properly and make you want to see those matches. So we would say that not as a slap in the face to the women, but a slap in the face to the promotion, saying you need to present your women better. AEW is doing that. Toni Storm, Timeless Toni, my favorite women's wrestler to date, which is funny because before she was Timeless Toni, I could not stand her, didn't want to see her, could care less, was irritated that she was even, women's champion at first. But Timeless Toni, I have to watch. I have to tune in. And I said it on a podcast, I think our last episode of the Wrestling Society podcast, when she officially won it, I said, you keep this title on that woman for a minimum of a year, and you're going to make that championship prestigious. And they're currently on a roll with it. I'm not a big fan of the fake CEO, but that match, and it's Stephanie Vaquer, that match. I'm not a big Mercedes Moné fan, but that match I was hooked from both women. All the other matches were incredible. Of course, I would be, Swerve and Osprey. I knew it was going to be good, but I just feel like it was better than expected. I hate multiple false finishes in a match. I hate that. Those two made me love it. The way they did it, where you're like, there's just no way. But they made me love it because it's believable. Osprey, 18-0. Of course he would kick out of multiple finishes. And he didn't do it where he was no selling. He would barely get out. And then your world champion is a world champion. So obviously he's going to give everything and then more. And it really felt like I don't know who's going to win this match. Like I'm Osprey's my favorite. Swerve just needs to hold it past Wembley, in my opinion. He needs to keep holding it. I was torn and I didn't know who was going to win it. But the way Osprey went out, where he was, he was just completely out of it. And, it was just storytelling done beautifully and doesn't get the credit it deserves. But it was like Osprey gave everything. You can't deny he did not give his all. And Swerve almost didn't want to put him out. But, I mean, hey, you got to be 18-1 at some point. And so
Right.
the storytelling, the match, it was beautiful. That Swerve stomp from the top of the ropes to the outside onto the table. Golly. All the match, and like Bear said, I did not pay attention to, the Jericho match and stuff, but from what I did see, it was actually pretty captivating. I am very happy that Hook went over on Jericho. That was a very big, I'm really happy. And I loved seeing Taz, get excited where he couldn't hide it in his voice, watching his boy do that. And another little hidden thing was, oh, dude, I'm drawing a blank on the commentator, the one who always hates on Danielson. The
Yeah. Yeah, I know who you're talking about.
anyways, y'all know who I'm talking about. I get forgetful, but when he stood up and he was legit crying when Timeless Tony won her match, legit like tears in his face. I'm like, bro, this is just beautiful. If AEW could run their weekly shows the way they do pay-per-views, they would be a juggernaut. I mean, their pay-per-views are always incredible. And I do like that they don't end their pay-per-views all the time with something crazy happening. You know what I mean? Like it's always just a definitive winner. So when they do end a pay-per-view with something crazy, it's going to stand out a lot more. But yeah, I could talk all night about that pay-per-view. It was good job, AEW.
Yes, yeah, and they do it. I mean, the wrestling, to me, the wrestling of AEW is masterclass. They always have had great wrestling. I can watch AEW every now and then and still be entertained because I don't have to keep up with the storyline like WWE. WWE knows how to intertwine the wrestling to tell the story, whereas AEW just puts on great wrestling matches.
Yeah.
And so I like each show for different reasons. Love that Britt Baker came back.
Britt Baker, yeah.
Oh, that was great. I loved it. Yeah, I marked out on that one.
I should have known. I'm beating myself up that I didn't. I feel like I should have known that, but that was great.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Then we have another event that kind of shook the wrestling world. And this happened on SmackDown. And 2.5 Eels did a show about it as well.
I know where you're going with it now.
And this is the turn of the bloodline on the original wise man, Paul Heyman. What are your thoughts on that?
Storytelling done at its finest, in my opinion. I feel like, storyline wise, they felt like Wise Man was, whether it was secretly or openly, holding the bloodline back and wanting Roman to come in and kind of save the day. So they just eliminated him. As in my opinion, I think if I'm in the bloodline, absolutely right call. Get rid of this man. He is, no pun intended, but the wise man. He knows things. He's smart. He's, one of the ones that helped get Roman and the bloodline to the levels that they were. But he's made it clear he's not going to try to do that with the new bloodline. So if he's not going to help, then he's only going to bring him down. So it was the right call. Him being, 58? That was in poor taste, but hey, you're heels. Boo the bad guys. You're supposed to do heelish stuff. That's what you do. Paul Heyman will never get enough credit simply because the amount of credit he deserves is impossible to be able to give him. The man is just, he's you gotta love him. And you either love him or you love to hate him, but you gotta love him. You hear the WC or ECW guys who he did so wrong, he did him so dirty. They will still go to war, to him for him to this day. He's just one of those, and the fact that and I don't care who you are or what you say or what you believe. Paul Heyman would not take a power bomb through the table if Paul Heyman didn't want to take a power bomb through the table.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was 58 and said, "Hey, you know what? Let's do this." Beautiful. He's going to be written off for a while. I pray that this isn't the last we see of Paul Heyman. I really hope we see more. And ideally, I'm not a funk. I'm not a Punk fan. I am a Terry Funk fan. So let me say that. I'm not a Punk fan. I used to be a diehard Punk fan, but I just, it's kind of lost on me with the controversy, whether it was warranted or not. It just put a sour taste in my mouth. And I haven't seen him do anything in WWE getting injured right off the bat. I hope he proves me wrong. The most I've ever loved CM Punk was when Paul Heyman was at his side. I would love nothing more than to see Paul Heyman and CM Punk back together, eventually leading to a Punk and Roman, kind of way they did with, Paul Heyman, Brock, and Roman, whose side is he on? I would love to see a Roman and Punk feud with Paul Heyman kind of in the middle. That's what I hope for. But yeah, I'm bloodline, for for life. I love the new bloodline. I love the old bloodline. I'm intrigued by the story. I do think that Solo needed this because people weren't taking him as seriously. And I feel like this kind of helps a little bit push him more of, the mobster kind of feel. Whereas like, hey, I'm maybe not the strongest or whatever y'all are hating on me, but when I say something needs to be done, something's going to get done. So I think when you have a team that is willing to hide a body for you, you're a scary man. And so I think it did wonders for Solo, wonders for the bloodline. And I'm hooked. So it's hooked me.
So the scuttlebutt around the water cooler is possibly, Paulie going grabbing Roman. And then I've heard mention on a couple of places that they're talking about having a Heyman guy faction versus a bloodline faction. So you've had Roman, you've had CM Punk, and then you've had the other beast incarnate,
Brock
Lesnar.
Man, here's the deal. I'm all for that, but realistically, who's going to beat that team? You know what I'm saying? But now here, if you have those three guys, how many is currently in the bloodline? The new bloodline?
4.
There's 4, right?
Yes.
With a possible 5th one coming in.
Yes.
So if you have 5 of those bloodline guys versus those 3 Heyman guys, it becomes realistic.
Yeah.
Like a handicap match where it's like, okay, and they used to do it with, John Cena and Randy Orton versus the Locker Room. That
Right.
was a little less realistic, but you could do that, with 4 to 5 of the new bloodline versus, those three. It becomes more realistic. They start beating on the three, and then Brock Lesnar just goes on a suplex city of rage, and then out of nowhere it's even again.
Yeah.
I feel like if you had, and that's one of the things that I wanted to see when the Shield was at its hottest on the main roster. The 4 Undisputed Era guys were hottest in NXT. I wanted to see those 4 versus the 3 Shield members in a handicap match, but it makes it more even.
Right.
So that's definitely something I could see if you stop it at Brock, Roman, and Punk.
Right.
But yeah, I think that would be pretty dope.
Yeah. So then continue on with WWE and factions. You had Priest and Rollins have their little interaction, and Rollins basically says, "You know what? I tell you what. When I beat you, you have to leave the Judgment Day." And then you have Priest smart off and says, "Hey, they need me more than I need them." And I knew then it was going to start some sort of contention. And you kind of saw it bubble up in the surface a little bit on this one. Now they're teasing that you'll have maybe Priest and Mommy leave Judgment Day and stick together while you have Liv with Dominic and Finn and JD. I don't know where they're going to put R-Truth yet, but he's about the only unclaimed one. I guess Carlito, but I don't know. What do you think of the current storyline with the Judgment Day and Dominic and Liv?
So before I say anything, I need to give at least one controversial take. And I've never really thought about saying it out loud until you've brought this up. The choke slam south of heaven is an ugly move, and I hate it. I can't stand it. It looks like he's doing a choke slam and slips. I can't, to me, that's just an ugly move. You have Kane and Undertaker hitting those nasty choke slams. That's what a choke slam should look like. Besides the point, I love Damian Priest. The storyline, here's the thing. I don't know if because the Bloodline and the Y6 storylines are so solid that this one just feels it's missing something, or if it's just feeling like it's missing something in general. I just don't see where you can go from it and really make me want to see more of it. I feel like they start doing good and then they do something where it's like, it's like I feel like Finn Balor should be his own person. I hated that he was with the Judgment Day, and I still hate it. He's too good. And he's not like super young. Like people don't realize that he's 50? Like,
Yeah.
as a wrestler,
Yeah.
he's not like one of the young guys who, wrestling careers are not super long. Like that's you have your bump card and that kind of goes up pretty quick. So do something with him before, don't just have him as a side piece. So I want him to do more. I want him to leave. Another hot take. I've never been a big fan of JD. Never really been a big fan of him. Just regardless, nothing personal, nothing specific. I don't get excited watching his matches. I love Dom. Gotta love Dom. Dom's going to be a big star no matter what happens with him. Damian Priest, Mommy, they're going to be big no matter what. But I just feel almost like they just need to separate.
Yeah.
Like when the Shield was as big as they did, the only thing left for them to do was separate, and then it was exciting again. It's like now we get to see which member is going to do what. I just feel like I've never really been super behind the Judgment Day, even with Edge, leading it. I've just never really been behind it. I don't know what it is, what's missing. I feel like it's just a group of misfits who just, are randomly together. I want to see more. I want to be surprised. I want to be hooked. I mean, I don't want anything ever to fail. I don't, crap on wrestling when it's bad. I just talk about what I like. And currently, what I'm not liking is the Judgment Day storyline. I do want Damian Priest to retain the championship, just because I want to eventually see Drew McIntyre come back and take his championship back the same way Priest took it from him. I want to see that feud, that storyline, because their match at Mania was incredible. And I'd like to see, more of it with actual, bigger stories. But yeah, with the storyline with Mommy coming back and, going with Priest and, Dom and Liv and, I don't know. I'm just not super into it. I know most people are. I just feel like everybody that's involved in this storyline would be way better off if they had their own stuff going on.
Yeah,
that's me.
and I could see that. I'm kind of not necessarily a big fan of Liv anyway, but I understood.
Real quick, I just got to give a just for Bree out there, fudge Liv Morgan.
There you go.
There we go. Got that out of the way.
There you go, Bree. But yeah, just not necessarily a big fan of hers. I think Alexa Bliss is better. And so it's similar to the Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch. It's kind of two of the same thing there. Don't really need both. Liv and Alexa kind of were on that same thing. Look similar, act similar, similar size, similar move set. But I thought Alexa did it better. But I understood the storyline, going to take whatever she could away from Rhea, including Dom. Fine. I'm pretty tired of it, though, unless it makes Dom more like Eddie Guerrero. If this brings out a Latino Heat version of Dominic, I'm all for it.
Well, that's one of the reasons I loved it, was because it reminds me so much of Eddie and China. Like, yes. That's the same vibe I get, and it makes me love it even that much more.
Yeah. And I'm just hoping that we get a good payoff with that. I don't know. I really want to see Dominic really soak in that Eddie vibe and just exude that, because he can do it.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think he will get there eventually.
He's young. Yeah, he's got time.
So I guess the last one that I'll get your input on, we had another Stalker event with Perk Gable. It's Kurt Angle's illegitimate son, or however they want to portray that. It acts just like him. Lights go out, fireflies come up, and another strong video, in my opinion, between Bo or Taylor or whatever. We still don't know what name he's going to use outside of Howdy.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on, one, the Wyatt Six, and two, how they're doing these promos now?
I will say Mark Henry's getting way too much heat for being offended that these guys took a group picture in Whataburger, because I agree. I did not like it. I did not like seeing them in what that keep kayfabe alive, baby. Like, I leave Mark Henry alone, because I feel the same way. But storyline wise, I don't think it's ironic that they're, cutting off Perk Gable, considering they literally shot him in the head and he's back again. Perk Gable's going to be the Wyatt Six's kryptonite. I'm telling you that. He can't die. But no, on the serious note, like I said before, I'm nervous. This is such a big heartstring for us wrestling fans that we don't want it messed up or overdone or in any way, soured. And like I want it to succeed. And when I want something to see, Tevin says it best. The best wrestling you can enjoy is the wrestling where you keep your expectations low because anything is going to be good. And so I'm trying so hard to keep my, excitement, my hopes low. Um, but I really want to be excited about it. I like what I'm seeing. I'm all for it. I'm excited. It's getting me hyped. I love the question marks that are always left, and the what is next? What are we going to see next? Um, what is it going to lead to? I love the way everything looks and everybody looks. Um, it's just it's something that when you hit the Wyatt family, it was magic. And the fact that you hit the Shield and the Wyatt family at the same time, I mean, that was like seeing two shooting stars collide. Like it was just two right place, right time setups that just took off. And that's what kept me through some of the, PG era when I wanted to quit. Those things, Wyatt family and Shield. But it's so rare for it to succeed. Nexus was supposed to be one of the biggest things ever, and it had such an incredible start. And then it just started, they started getting jobbed to Cena. Like it's, I don't want to see something. I don't want to see something start to die out, because it's not great. Same way, after Brody Lee passed away, that the Dark Order, you thought this is their moment to really step up, and they just kind of started dying out.
Yeah.
I really want this to be what the Dark Order should have been after Brody passed. I know that's what Bray would have wanted. I do feel comfortable knowing it's his brother that's really keeping this going because his brother is going to do everything he can to make it work.
Yeah.
And he's doing a good job. I'm going to be nervous. Even when they're doing good, anytime they come out, it's like when Bryan Danielson or Edge came back to start wrestling. Every bump they took, you're like, holding your breath. You didn't want to see it go south. Like that's how I'm going to be with this. I want to see it, but I'm going to be holding my breath. Like, please don't, botch, don't mess up, don't, and don't do stupid storylines and stupid. I don't think Perk should be the main target. Perk Gable. I don't think he should be the main target. I was just giving a little joke, that he survived their attempted murder. I want to see, big names being taken out. People, I ideally, and I don't recommend this often, and it doesn't happen often, which is why I recommend it here. I want to see whoever, is world champion be so injured that they are forced to relinquish the championship because the Wyatt Six just, destroyed them. And whoever wins the new world championship, well, now, it's like, oh shoot, now I got to watch my back. Now it's a scary thing. Like I want to see these guys where nobody's, untouchable, just kind of like Bloodline taking out Paul Heyman. An eventual Bloodline feud versus Wyatt Six, I think, is what would be, a fun thing to witness. When we got the Shield versus Wyatt family, underrated match. I go back and watch it from time to time. I don't know how we're not still talking about that match. It was a thing of beauty, and it was one of those, the way Hogan and Rock got the holy shit chance. I'm sorry, I don't know if I can cuss, but
Yeah, that's fine.
the holy-ish chance. Like that's what you had two trios stronger than ever in their absolute prime, and they start feuding, and then that's when Shield is overcoming, and then that's when Braun Strowman makes his debut. Incredible. Like I want it to succeed, but it's just something that's it's close to our hearts, so don't hurt us.
Right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So far, I approve. I'm liking what I'm seeing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're taking it slow, and I enjoy that. It's a cinematic work of beauty so far, and I hope they continue to do so. And as long as the wrestling part of it holds up, I'm all for it. And that's my main worry now is, yes, we know that you can do great promos. We know that you can drop clues and your video packages are cinema quality, but how's your wrestling? And if that doesn't work, then we're going to have issues. So, but awesome. Well, hey, I really appreciate it. I know that we've been talking for quite a while. So your first official podcast interview is in the books.
Woo!
So tell everybody where they can find you, find WSN, get a hold of you.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, y'all can't follow me on Facebook because Facebook, stupid, has a friend max that you can have. But you can do one better and follow us on social media, pretty much on all our socials, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, at the Wrestling Society Network. With the Facebook, make sure you follow the group, not the page. We have 2,500 plus members, growing about 100 a month of pure wrestling fans. Just go chat about wrestling. There's podcasters. If you're an independent wrestler, best place in the world to get yourself booked on a podcast or with a wrestling promotion is with the Wrestling Society Network. We are a host. Again, we have 27 wrestling podcasts just teaming up with us for the WSN website. Plus, we have a team of I think currently probably close to 10 wrestling promotions that we're working with. Get yourself booked and get your name out there. WSN app on smart TV. Download it, watch it, and the Wrestling Society app or website will be out Thursday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Thank you guys so much. I can't tell you guys enough how much I love y'all. Y'all are what's keeping us going. Thank you, Professor Bear, Kuya, Tevin, Gavin, Donovan, Ankh, Bree, and of course, last but not least, Wiseman for keeping this thing going. No interruptions. And again, my bad for the last second let's go on Facebook thing. But thank you, man, for giving me my first interview. It was fun. It was solid. It's everything I dreamed of. Now it's going to be more because of it. But all the firsts are done right here on Running the Ropes with your man, Wiseman.
Hey, I appreciate that. Yeah, buckle up, baby. It's going to be a fun ride. Now that this first one's in the books, you'll definitely be getting messages constantly about trying to get you booked on shows. So congratulations, because I know it's coming. I'm so excited to be part of the WSN. So excited to be part of Downtime in the Ring, and my boys Donovan and Chris over there. Been a blast. I will get this up. I'll load it up to YouTube and back to Facebook once my slow internet downloads it, and then I'll send it out so everyone will see it before the night is over. So until next Tuesday, folks, this is Running the Ropes. Have a great day.